Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy. It's 7:30 a.m. There's a tropical depression outside and inside. And let me welcome you into the weekend with the five biggest stories that caught my attention this week. Now, before I get started, I just want to make sure that everyone has filled out the US Census. It just takes a few minutes, and it's super important in determining how many representative each state gets and how much federal funding communities receive. Also, make sure you're registered to vote. I put a link in the description that has all the information that you should need regarding that. According to Pew Research, for the first time since the Great Depression, a majority, 52% of young adults are living at home with their parents. I mean, this is really sad. All these young kids who are supposed to be starting their careers are stuck at home because the coronavirus and the economic fallout that followed is just stunting their job opportunities. Now, if the economy starts miraculously rebounding and job opportunities start opening up again, this stat might become a passing thing, but it's pretty hard to see that being true. On Thursday, the Democrats and Rand Paul voted against the GOP relief bill, essentially shutting down the last chance that the American public had at getting any sort of lifeline. By the time the bill was put up to vote, the GOP had stripped it so bare that they knew it was going to fail. They refused to include a new round of stimulus checks and refused to include any new funding to cities and states, but they thought it was appropriate to include a liability clause for businesses so they weren't liable for people getting sick at their companies. I mean, no one wins here. The little victory that McConnell and his goons get from virtue signaling about wanting to help the American people is totally outweighed by the fact that they aren't helping the American people, and the Dems fail to pass anything as usual. And worst of all, the American people are left alone to try to figure out how to navigate a decimated economy. The big scandal of the week was the Bob Woodward tapes. I made a video about it earlier in the week, so if you want to check that out, you can. But to briefly go over it, Bob Woodward had a series of 18 or so interviews with the president in which Donald Trump admitted he knew how serious and how deadly the virus was back in February, but he chose to downplay the virus and mislead the public into thinking that the virus was just as strenuous and just as deadly as any other flu. I mean, this is homicidal. It's completely negligent. It cost tens of thousands of people their lives, but this won't change his base. They will not change their minds. They will stand firm behind Donald Trump like the martyr that he is to them. Where I do think this might change the electorate is in the undecided elderly vote, which is particularly important in states like North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, where the election can really be decided. I mean, Florida is the most important swing state in this election. If Donald Trump doesn't win it, it's over for him. But I think people also forget to give Bob Woodward some flack. I mean, he had these tapes for months and months. He watched tens of thousands of people die, and he decided, you know what? I'm just going to keep these tapes until it's beneficial to me right before my book comes out so that I can just boost book sales. That's also disgusting. He gave some excuses about some journalistic ethics, but as a journalist, shouldn't your job be to protect and warn the public about potential harm? I don't know. Another scandal that flew under the radar of a lot of people this week was the Department of Justice seeking to take over the defamation lawsuit filed by E. Jean Carroll against Donald Trump for raping her in a dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman 2 decades ago. Yeah, this sucks so bad. This sucks so bad. They say that Donald Trump was acting in his official capacity when he said that he didn't know her. I don't understand that defense. But the bottom line is now Trump is using taxpayer money, the money that citizens pay to the government in order to get social benefits or infrastructure, to fight a rape case against him. So that's nice. It's nice to know that the system is working well and that we have a normal society. The last topic I want to talk about today is sort of an ongoing story that I think warrants a little bit more talking about than the other ones. Right now, there are almost 100 separate fires burning on the West Coast. Millions of acres, whole communities, thousands of homes have burned to the ground, and more will burn soon. Something I've been thinking about this week is how the news cycle has dealt with these fires. The only reason this became national news for the day or two that it did was because big cities like San Francisco were turned into these post-apocalyptic, Blade Runner-esque landscapes with orange skies and ash falling like black snow. It's so easy to focus all the attention on images coming out of places like the Bay Area that show skylines enveloped in smoke, because they're just so astonishing to look at. But where I think our fascination for these images hurts us is in understanding where the real damage is being done. Small towns like Phoenix, Oregon, or the Blue River community are gone. They're completely destroyed. But their stories aren't the ones showing up on prime time. Homes that families have owned for generations are rubble. But what the media focuses on is how much ash is on a tech exec's bike path in downtown San Fran. This isn't to say the reaction to its effects being felt in big urban areas is inappropriate. It's just really upsetting to think about what kinds of people need to be affected before the media cares enough to cover the story. And if you think this is a freak year, that all these fires are just a fluke, that it'll all go back to normal next year, I've got some bad news for you. This is the new normal. This is what we're going to have to be dealing with for years. If we only devote energy to the climate catastrophe conversation when it affects metropolitan areas, we will lose. We'll just lose. We have to pay attention and care for the communities that have been voiceless in their suffering. We need to take action not only to restore as much as we can, but to prevent further disaster. The only way we can do that is by committing to massive overhauls of current systems and by voting in representatives that will be dedicated to organize and pass those legislative overhauls. It's sad to think about, and it's really scary. The world seems to be falling apart. But the only way we can get through this is together and by committing all our resources to trying to stop climate change. Thank you for listening to me this morning. If you want to learn more about any of the stories I covered, links are in the description. If you want to keep forcing me to wake up early on Saturdays, subscribe, and have a great weekend.